lot about pretty heavy stuff that goes on within Luciferian cult families. But the one aspect that I'd really like to bring up, which is why it made it a double binding spell to have me under such extreme mind control. When you take into all aspects of how this has to go down, you start to see patterns of extreme narcissism, lies, manipulation, covert abuse, very covert. And when I first started waking up was after I lost my house due to foreclosure. A lot of people like to know that side of my story, and I would really like to explain it. I don't know the full pieces of the puzzle quite yet. I'm still doing some investigating. That is why I'm up in this area that I'm in as well. There's a lot of answers to my past and how the trafficking actually worked. So, but without further ado, I lost my house. I had to stay with my parents, and it was my son's birthday. It was his 22nd birthday because he was born on the first day of spring. And that is something that happens in all cult families. Your birthday coincides with very high ritual days. They will make sure that your birthday falls upon a ritual date. And in my family, we follow the Druid calendar of the year for high rituals, as well as the basic, as well as the satanic ritual calendar. And as usual, anytime that it was my son's birthday, there were things going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about. And so what had to happen was a humiliation ritual would happen, usually before myself and my son having some kind of interaction, orchestrated by my father, who is the patriarch who nobody questions within the family, grandiose narcissist, warlock. He belongs to the Rosicrucian order, and the Rosicrucian order follows just about every secret society that there is. So my father has the ins on very high level esoteric Freemasonry, and not something to brag about, because fighting to get my mind back was one of the most painful experiences. I mean, besides even just getting the memories back, just realizing who your family really is and what they are involved in. So the humiliation ritual went down as me planning out my son's birthday, where we were going to meet and what we were going to have for dinner. And I said, we are going to have pizzas from Little Caesars. I know it's very cheap, it's gross, whatever, but birthday, it is what it is. And I mean, I was thinking of something kind of healthy too to bring with it, but for the most part, my nieces and nephews are going to be there, and my brother, whom loves Little Caesars. And I get a message back from my dad saying, don't worry about the food, we're bringing leftovers. And I felt very betrayed. I felt like the straw that broke the camel's back, where I believe that I sent a text message back saying something along the lines of, why do you guys always have to take over like this? Or why does it always have to be so difficult? Why do plans always have to be changed? Why can't you just accept what the offer is from me? And I remember this code word that my dad would always say, and it was always when we got into a fight. He would say, look in the mirror. And at the time, I didn't understand. I thought that he was just throwing it back in my face, basically saying, what you're accusing me of, you're doing. Which he was, but there was also a hidden aspect to it. You see, Luciferians speak in doublespeak codes, and they have to always tell you the truth, even when they're fighting. So it was my dad's way of calling out the fact of what it was that I was used for occult rituals. So he was signaling me, but also humiliating me. Now, he did not send this text, look in the mirror. However, I remembered that was usually his tactic. So I was expecting a message like that back. And through this pain that I was experiencing, I was experiencing the trauma of giving birth to my son. I was experiencing so many things because all of that DNA from my son lives inside of me. So we are telepathic with each other. And so it was like I was feeling my son coming into my energy too, because he was going into a different altered state of consciousness as the party was already being set up and his own mother wasn't there. I remember looking in the mirror, crying, and my dad's words that he would normally say to me, look in the mirror, just started repeating in my head as I'm sitting there crying and having like an almost like panic attack. But what I didn't realize was that it was my son's energy like coming into me and setting off a lot of things. It was like a breakdown in programming. And because I wasn't in my father's presence, where he could easily see that my programming was breaking down, and he would have been able to have access to me. He would have used a stun gun. He would have used lighting. He likes to turn lights on and off for hypnosis. There's a lot of different ways that he can put me back into a slave state, which is why people talk about me reconciling with my family, and I'm like, no, you don't get it. My father is an actual physical danger to me and my children. And that code word stuck out. And so it was me waking up. And what I did is I drove off, and I drove to a place nearby. It was across state lines. I live very close to Minnesota. And it was an old place that I worked at. And I didn't know where I was heading, if I was going to head to my friend's house, or if I was going to loop around and go back to the park that they were all meeting at in Wisconsin. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I ended up in that parking lot. And I sat in that parking lot thinking about calling my friend, going to my friend's house, and I was like, I need to be by myself, but I need somebody with me. I feel very emotionally wrecked right now, more so than I should be. I mean, I was just having a full-on panic attack because the programming was breaking down. So I sat in that parking lot all night. I ended up sleeping there in my van. It was cold out too. It was a cold night, and I want to say that might have been my first night sleeping in my van, where it was just me being like, I need to be by myself and not have any other outside influences telling me how I should feel about the situation or anything. I sat with the Most High God, and he got me through that panic attack, and he got me through everything that it brought up between myself and my parents' relationship and their overreach with my son, and how I was basically pushed out of his life from a very young age. This is classic Luciferian playbook tactics. They have to sever a bond with the mother and son. They weren't successful. Not in my case. They almost were. So I will say that. It took a long time for me to wake up. And because my son is still here with us, he is also waking up. But the other part of that story is just how powerful that night was, cosmically and spiritually. You see, that night, while I was crying my eyes out to the Most High God in a hotel parking lot on my son's birthday,